of Colorado older adults, and also to talk about the Elder Justice Act, which came about in 2010. So the conversation was about financial exploitation of older adults by a lot of talk about scammers. Right now, I know I get them on my phone all the time about the Social Security, saying that I owe back dues on Social Security and I'm going to be arrested for it, or IRS. I get those. I know older adults do. The problem with this, as it is to older adults, to someone my age, is that older adults have much less ability to bounce back from financial exploitation. I still have a working career in front of me. Older adults maybe don't. And so when they are victimized and out of their funds, they're likely not going to get those funds back. So this conversation was about what do we need to do legislatively to make sure that older Coloradans are protected, because you know, one of the other things, one of the consequences is that it makes older adults more dependent on you know, services and things that maybe they would have been able to pay for themselves. It also has a health and psychological impact to older adults that it doesn't in younger people. So the risk to older adults is much more increased when we're talking about financial exploitation. So out of this conversation at the governor's residence, there was a task force created. It was initially called the Task Force for Financial Security for Older Coloradans, or the TFFSFOC.
That's pretty catchy.
And wisely, they changed it to the Financial Security Coalition, which is now the FSC, which is much easier to say and understand. So, but through this event, there were representatives there from, there were 2 ombudsmen there, a couple AAAs, Attorney General's office. There was a U.S. Attorney there, representatives from the Governor's office, from the Treasurer's office, and also representatives from the Strategic Action Planning Group on Aging. And in this discussion, what we found, as far as some data that is interesting, is that APS annual reports for the state in 2017 and 2018 reported that 25% of their cases that they investigated were related to exploitation. The difference there, when you look at the year before, oh, no, not the year before, but 2006 and 2007, there was only 16% of their cases that were about exploitation. And I can say from my experience as an ombudsman over 15 years that financial exploitation continues to increase. And so protections are definitely needed, and conversations should be happening, and it's good that they are.
Scott, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm curious, do you think it's getting worse, or do you think that people are finally starting to acknowledge and actually tell people that it's happening?
I think both.
A combination.
I think it's getting worse, and I think that you know, with recent legislation around financial or mandatory reporting of reasonable suspicion of abuse, we see increases there. There was also some legislation around the financial industry that they are also mandated to report. So if banks, you know, see an older adult come into the bank and you know, there's a person behind them and they withdraw $5,000 and it feels like, you know, maybe it's reasonable to assume that this older adult is being exploited out of their money, they're mandated to report. So we have the legislation to identify abuse, but I think there's also more of an awareness. I do think that there's more cases happening. Data suggests that only 1 in 9 is ever reported. So,
well, that's what I've always been concerned about, because oftentimes people don't want to tattle on their grandson or whoever it might be, and so because it's embarrassing, they don't want to tell people. So I was just curious from your perspective. So probably both. So it's still partially, but that also it is getting worse.
Right.
Okay,
I think,
that's curious.
you know, that's my opinion. I don't have data to support that, but I believe it's both.
Which is the problem. There's not as much data because people aren't telling.
Right.
They're not, yeah, okay. I was
But,
curious.
and you're right, part of that is older adults are sometimes hesitant to report because the suspect in the case is often somebody that they know. So they don't want to get that person in trouble. Or they might be their caregiver, so it might be a thing where if I tell on my caregiver and they get cuffed, who's going to take care of me on a daily basis? So those are the things or retribution, yes, or retaliation of some sort. So these are the things and challenges that this Financial Securities Coalition is going to have to tackle. So it's split out into 3 different committees. First event's next month, November 7th. And there are 3 working groups with 50 participants. We will be on one of these committees. So there's one on community engagement. So to me, this is the most important one, in my opinion, because I feel like when we're talking about offshore scammers, there's nothing that we can do. We can't call cops to go arrest people that are in Nigeria and Jamaica, right? So I've actually been a part of cases in real time where I've actually talked to the person on the other end of the line and has told me, there's nothing that you can do to me because I'm in Jamaica, right? And they're right. So the biggest way to combat that, either through scams going on through emails or through telephone, is to give education to seniors about here are the risks. And frankly, these scammers are becoming extremely sophisticated. I have to be careful myself of the emails and phone calls that I get. They are very sophisticated. They continue to evolve. And providing education is the best way to combat this, to stop people from, falling prey to these individuals that seek to exploit them out of their money. I think that's the first thing we can do. I think that's an achievable goal. We don't need legislation. We don't need a lot of work to implement education of older adults. Next one is research and policy. So that committee will be, researching data, defining the problem, and then hopefully suggesting some policy changes in the state. And then also a statewide marketing campaign, which is also going, that side of education that I mentioned. So the goals is to recommend a comprehensive statewide strategy for consumer protections, to act as a hub for collaboration among state and local governments, to create a statewide communication strategy with a common vision for consumer protections, and assemble a comprehensive inventory of current programming and services across the state for financial literacy. So one of the things we need to do is understand what we have in place right now as a means to understand maybe what we need to build still. Also conducting research, and then the committees will serve in an advisory role to the Attorney General about statewide financial literacy initiatives. Okay, any questions? All right, thank you.
I guess I just throw one observation on it. I think that, this initiative, this Financial Security Coalition, if there's some way that information can get out more broadly, even that it exists and that there are these separate working groups, I was thinking that, like with the major influx or major number of religious groups and nonprofits in the area, it might be something that working with Focus on the Family or somebody like that as a means for getting more information out on a broader perspective that would then filter into the churches. That might be another way of trying to increase education or the literacy level, if you will, on this exploitation and justice side.
I agree with that. I think that they were missing in this conversation. Oddly enough, when we were at the governor's residence to discuss this, there wasn't a single law enforcement officer there either. So we need to get them into the fold. And I know our Detective Shatkowski he would certainly be interested in, from CSPD, to be involved in an initiative like this. So that's a recommendation that I will certainly make, that law enforcement agencies need to be a part of this, not just policymakers.
I'd broaden that also to include the emergency responders, especially
Yes.
firefighters, because they go out to the homes repeatedly and for medical-related issues, but they might also get exposed to or understand that that individual is really suffering from some other aspect of exploitation.
Agreed.
This is an unrelated note, but as long as Scott's standing up there and I can embarrass him. Scott James Bartlett of Woodland Park was last week appointed to the Board of Commissioners of the Veterans Community Living Centers. If anybody knows how the state boards and commissions work, it's a Class B board that advises on the activities of all the veteran centers in the United States, so he's to be congratulated for that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any questions or comments?
I had some information that I could share from an Adult Protective Services perspective. So I actually pulled some data across the state while you were talking, Scott. So last month alone, there was 700 cases across the state that were open for exploitation. That's about 30% of the entire Adult Protective Services caseload. And then I know we're a larger region, but in El Paso County alone, and if you guys are interested in data on any other counties, I can give that too, but El Paso County alone, we had 97 cases that were open for exploitation here in El Paso County just for last month. So compound that across a 12-month period, it's a huge problem. Usually the ones that APS is getting involved in are for individuals that are friends, family, relatives, caretakers, someone that knows the individuals. So
Yeah.
To Scott's point, these are where we know what's going on, and there's also the other overseas scammers, people that are calling, emails, mailing, everything like that.
So we can surmise from just what you pulled up that the percentage of substantiated exploitation cases to APS will probably go up in the next reporting period then, is what it sounds like.
So these are cases that were opened, which means we have an at-risk adult, so someone that maybe isn't able to provide care or access care for themselves, and then we have an allegation of the mistreatment. So the number of those that actually get substantiated is going to vary based on the investigation, but usually it's a significant portion where it's actually going on. So whether it's going up or not, I'm not sure. In general, our number of reports are going up, so percentage-wise, it's maybe comparable to where we've been at in the past, but there's a large number of that going on. And again, most of what we're seeing is individuals that are related to these individuals.
Yeah.
It might be worthwhile in the coming year, in 2020, to kind of look at, pulling together the statistics on this to try to get a sense, okay, where was it, say, 10 years ago, and where is it 5 years ago, and where are we today? What's it look like? Has it been up and down, and now it's really spiking and accelerating? That would be helpful, I think, just to kind of get everybody to get a baseline of knowledge on that.
Yeah, I mean, I could pull any of the data. I can't go back 10 years just because our reporting wasn't as robust in terms of data tracking then, but I could go back, I think, at least 4 or 5 years since
Even
we
4 or
rolled with the
5
new
years would be
system, and
helpful.
we could track trends or anything like that. So
Yeah.
if anybody's interested, let me know. I can pull any of that data for you guys.
And I guess I'm going to maybe commit Jody and the rest of the AAA for something the next year, but in mind of education in at least what I feel how important that is to prevent exploitation, that maybe the AAA look at doing something about educating older adults in this community about the risk of exploitation and how to spot it. So I would advise that maybe that's something that we take a look at.
Would it be helpful, Scott, because there's a number of reports that we get, like you mentioned, those overseas scammers or stuff locally that maybe don't rise to the level of APS. Would it be helpful for us, is there a way for us to share that? We can't share specifics on the individuals, but maybe on what happened and what's going on. Is there a place where you think it would help to report that information to or share that information with right now?
Well, I think it would be helpful for this state committee to understand what's occurring here in this region.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, I've asked for data through committees from APS through Tracy Munson before. There's things that you're right, there's things that they can share and things that they can't.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be interesting to do that along with the cases that CSPD is seeing and try and gauge what's actually occurring here in the region. I don't know if we've done that collectively yet.
Okay, yeah, and most of what we're seeing, if CSPD is getting it, we're getting it, so these are probably co-occurring on a lot of these here. I think, like I mentioned, we can't share specifics about who reported or who the at-risk adult is or anything like that, but the specifics on maybe who the scammer is or anything like that, we could definitely share that. You mentioned Tracy or
Yeah.
Eric or Kelly. I would say, yeah, touch base with them. I mean, so like who the scammer was potentially, or like if we're getting a bunch of reports of individuals that are doing these types of scams, like that might help, I think, in the outreach that you guys are talking about. Like, here's something to keep an eye on. Like, here's what we're seeing right now. So maybe in terms of that outreach and proactive approach, it might help.
There's questions back here.
I think that's a really good idea, because exploitation is just a word, and for a lot of people may not really understand what exactly is that. And so we're giving real life examples of how that's happening. And then what my original question or thought was, does exploitation also include, I've been hearing a lot of instances where on caregiving, so the adult child has moved in with the parent to be a paid caregiver, and then that's where a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff is happening. Is that what that, is that part of the exploitation as well?
I call those individuals SpongeBobs because, but yeah, that's a problem. And the answer to that is yes and no. Because part of the challenge is that an individual has the right to decide what happens with their money too, right? So there's that. But yes, potentially yes, it could be, but also maybe not. But that is certainly maybe some of the education, because I think the value of the education is maybe helping, empowering in that situation the individual to make decisions to protect themselves that maybe put them at risk but don't rise to the level of being criminal. That's another side, benefit of education as well.
The education piece, if you're gathering stories or documentation of what some of the biggest scams going on are at the moment, the Attorney General's office is already, they've got a website, and they already are trying to get some of that information out. You can go there to see what the current hot scam is, and they usually summarize what it looks like and provide the information on who to contact and all of that. But maybe working with them so that that information is distributed more broadly, or you need some of their resources to help with education.
Yes, agreed.
Scott,
Yeah.
when you gather data, since I live in an unincorporated El Paso County, could we not only look at Colorado Springs as a city, but also look at the county data?
Yes, and so APS would be county data. I don't have relationships with all the law enforcement agencies. I certainly do with CSPD, and I'm gaining a relationship with law enforcement agencies in Teller County. But, I do believe that there should be some outreach in collecting data, not just about Colorado Springs, but the rural parts of Colorado as well.
For example, the Sheriff's Department for El Paso
Yes.
County.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Lucy?
Another side note, the Better Business Bureau also has a scam tracker on their website, so you can go there. It kind of sounds like the same. There's a poll in the way, so I don't know who was talking there, but kind of similar to what she was talking about with, it tells you what the scam is all about, and it gives you resources to report it and all that kind of stuff, but the Better Business Bureau is keeping track of those kinds of things, too.
Okay, good.
So it sounds like in some respects that there are a number of sites or media or venues where they're providing this information. Maybe what needs to happen is that there needs to be a podcast on something like this that's available for everybody to you can broadcast that out or at least make it aware. The other thing might be public service announcements through TV, through the law enforcement, or somebody else that's saying, hey, for seniors especially, here are some things that need to be kept in mind. So, thank you. Right here. Right here. He's got all the time in the world, another week, less than a week. Perfect.
And to talk about this exploitation and all that stuff, it's out there. I mean, really the challenge is getting the seniors to come and sit down and listen to it and pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I was just at a presentation this week, and it was on safety in the home, and Chuck was there, Detective Chuck was there presenting and talked about all these things, and there was 3 seniors in the room. They sent out 2,000 postcards inviting folks to come. So there's information out there, it's just leading the horse to drink the water.
What about all the senior facilities, living facilities, independent, assisted, and the rest of it? I mean, that's a huge number of seniors. And are they attending those types of public forums or discussions?
Some are. In the SRC, our last meeting we did, APS Kim Gallegos came and talked and kind of gave us a presentation about, from a presenter or a provider standpoint, because a lot of providers think when they call APS, the situation's going to get fixed, and most of the time it doesn't. So it was helping educate us on how we better call and the things to report and all of that stuff to make it a good case for them to be able to follow through on. So yeah, it's out there.
All right,
Yeah.
great. One more. Bobby?
I've got under public comment, the coalition, we thank you for releasing our grant at the beginning of this month. But at this point, we would like to ask for a revision to that grant, and we've been advised that that needs to come before this board. So we are requesting a revision.
I'm not sure what that means, but
I'm not sure either. We'd be happy to talk to you afterwards, Bobby, and find out what that entails. We can do that offline, but we'd be happy to do that. If it's not an action item on today's, we can put something together for
the
next month.
meeting.
If
And Jody can deal with it.
If it does have to go to the TRS committee and back to the RAC, we would need to be beginning that process before the next meeting, rather than waiting until the next meeting to initiate.
I think the point is clear. Okay, you have an issue with the funds that have been allocated to you and that you're raising it to this group. It's not on the agenda here. It needs to be addressed. I think it needs to be talked off-site with the experts to figure out, okay, so what are the next steps that we really have to go through, and what's the timeline for that? That's not something that we collectively can deal with at this point. So I appreciate your input, I really do.
So who is our contact for how we follow up?
We'll be happy to talk to you afterwards.
It's an off-site. All right, any other public comments?
Actually, Dave, I do have one. I just wanted to, since it's this time of year, as membership chair, just would like to remind people that this is when we're looking for new members for our council, and since we have another vacancy, making more work for me, we're always looking for potential new people that would be good for options for the council. So that's not just something that I wanted to say to the other council members, but also to those who are in the public as well. So if you know anyone that you think would be appropriate, that I think our numbers, our ratio right now, we need to have 50% who are actually over the age that we serve. So half of our council has to be over 60. I'm not going to ask people to raise their hands as to who's in that category or not.
Just bragging now.
That's right, exactly. So that is one thing that we do need to consider, but also that we're reaching all the different areas geographically within our service area. So as far as El Paso Park and Teller, this is probably the most representation we've ever had from Park County. So yay, that's an awesome opportunity. If you guys know of anyone, if you can think of a senior that you know that has been involved with your organization, there are sometimes conflict of interest if they are actually like on a board for one of the services or one of our providers. Sometimes we have to kind of have that conversation. But otherwise, now is the time for us to start looking for probably a couple more people. So it's one of the tricks to get out there.
Looked at the distribution just a couple weeks ago, and we could use someone from Woodland Park, and then anybody, believe it or not, from Colorado Springs is probably our lowest represented area. We have great representation from southern El Paso, northern El Paso, and Park County. but the core area of our service is the one that's probably underrepresented at this point.
Well, and we have had great representation the last few years from Phyllis, who's been out in the eastern El Paso County, but she's going to be, she's going to be rolling off at the end of the year. And so if there's anyone out there as well, and it's, I don't know how I can impress about how important it is that we have someone who can represent the different areas. And unfortunately, as diverse as Park County is, and as well as Teller, El Paso County, I mean, from the north to the south, all the way to the east, I mean, there's such different issues all around that making sure that we're getting all those bases covered is really important. So if you have anyone that you can think of, please contact me. If you know of anyone who actually already think is ready, would like to do it, they can probably contact Melissa as far as application. We do need to have that like in a central location, and so probably to Melissa, and then we'll get it from her for the committee. And that is available online, the application is. So please let me know. We would appreciate it.
It would also be very nice if you have people that might be interested, bring them to a meeting.
Absolutely. It's always nice for them to see what it is we actually do. And then on a personal note, my husband is sitting at a cancer center thing, getting the little thing scrubbed. So if I have to leave to go pick him up because I dropped him and left. So I might have to leave. So you'll know why. He's fine. I just need to give him a ride home.
Okay, so that, I think that takes care of item number 3, the public comments. Now we're on to the provider presentations and next day access. I think Monique and Dave are up for that. I should mention too, just in passing, that there is a folder. If every member hasn't seen that folder, make sure you, there are a couple cards in there, and the idea would be for you to sign them while we're doing this. Okay? Make sure everybody gets a chance to sign.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So this is Dave and I'm Monique, by the way, just in case there was any confusion about that. So we are Next Day Access Colorado. So we are actually a locally owned, locally owned accessibility company. So, and before I go on, in case people are confused, we do not provide service the next day, which we've had some people confused about that. Even if they get an appointment within a week, they say, oh, I thought you could do the next day. Not quite. So today I'm going to talk mostly about home and bathroom safety, which is actually what we do under the AAA program. So bathroom safety is the bigger one then. So what do? We actually empower people to actually stay in their own home as independently and as safely as possible. And judging by some of the comments we get on the surveys, I think we are getting to be quite successful at that. So, because a lot of the people that we serve would not even for grab bars, when we tell them the cost of what private pay is, they would not do that. So, and grab bars are the simplest, most effective way of keeping people safe in their own bathrooms. That's one of the biggies. And yes, thank you, Ben. Yes, and we will pass those around, and I'll talk to them a little bit more about that. So what do we do as a company? Basically, if you need anything that's related to accessibility, we do it. Anything from as simple as grab bars to stair lifts, wheelchair ramps, vertical platform lifts, which I don't have photos of, but basically, if you don't have room for a ramp, you do a vertical platform lift. We do ceiling lifts as well, ceiling tracks. We do it all. So, and we are age-friendly, which is actually, Dave actually was one of the first ones who became age-friendly certified through BBB. So,
we're the second company in Colorado Springs to have
yes. So, and we work with a lot with seniors. So, as far as what related to specifically to the AAA, so in the last grant funding year, we actually served almost about 215 individual clients. So, which is actually more than the year before, and I think we'll probably surpass that again this year. So, I think, which is really good that we get these. So, again, this past year. Grab bars. That's exactly our mainstay of what we do actually for the AAA. And if you notice with the grab bar that we provide, they're what we call peen. They're stainless steel, first of all. They're peen, which means there's a little texture. Did you see that? So they're not so slippery. There's a little surface texture to them. They have the vanity plates, which means you don't see the screws, so they look nicer, and people appreciate that. So, and they don't rust, and the screws behind them don't rust, and that type of thing. So, people tend to be quite happy with those. Last year, there's a little typo there. It should be the 2018-2019 funding year. We actually installed at least 400 grab bars this past year. So, a lot of grab bars.
Is it typically one grab bar per home, or is it in some instances two?
Generally two is a general recommendation. One at the entrance to the shower tub area so that you've got some support there as you get in and out. That transferring of weight is a big fall risk area. And then generally one. And depending on what people are using their tub or shower for, either diagonal, horizontal, we actually let the client help us decide where and how they want it installed based on how they think they'll use it. So we generally do two, but we'll do up to four for clients. Because sometimes they have two bathrooms because they might have an upstairs bathroom, the master bath, but then they'll have a little, and they want one down there. So by the toilet, for example, is another one that we do a lot of. So, and again, similar concept. This would be by the toilet again. So the other services we provide for the AAA are exterior railings. The front steps never have a railing. Did you notice that? So a lot of people want that security of having something to hang on to. We work with a welder. He builds very simple railings for us, just enough to sort of get people up and down those stairs or across that front step. And these are an example. And he'll color them. They're powder coated. He'll paint them the color that people want. There's a black one here, yellow one. So it's whatever people want. Again, very simple, basic exterior railings. That he also does other jobs. He doesn't only work for us. So he had a big project over the last, 12 months almost, that he was working on and was not available to do these railings for us. So we actually then went to a company that actually has these modular type of railings, which actually work pretty well. They're more expensive, however, so we used those in the interim, but now we've got our welder back, so we're back to doing those. But these are actually kind of cool looking as well. So, samples. We also do interior banisters or railings. So these are what we used to do. We used to, you go to Home Depot and get the round railings that are the raw wood, sand them, we'd stain them the color people wanted them, we'd varnish them, and then we'd go back and install them. The problem with that is, of course, you have to have time to do that. It takes up a lot of time. In the wintertime, the shop is not heated, so it makes it challenging to do all of this type of work. So these are examples of some of the ones we used to do. Again, we'll do them, however people want, color again. But then we ran out of time. We were running out of time. So now we've come to a company called Promenade, and these are actually the railings that we now use to do that. Again, this is an example of the light-colored wood. The people can actually get the darker-colored wood. You can have the corner returns and that type of thing. But that's probably what the interior banisters are probably one of the second most thing that we actually do under the under the AAA program.
That is an extruded aluminum railing with a wood veneer laid on top.
Yeah, and people like them. They're nice. They're a nice finish.
But also with warp.
No.
Yeah, they don't warp. They are,
No.
once they are up, they are sturdier than wood.
These are manufactured in the U.S.?
They are manufactured in Canada, actually. Canadian.
And it's not uncommon for people that already have railing on the one side of the steps, but again, they feel the need to have that second side. But although there are some homes that don't have, like split levels, that don't have railings at all, which is kind of interesting. But and David always, when he talks to our installers, for example, one of the things about when people need an extra railing along the walls or on the steps is you notice the one side is always, so people are always touching. So David's a good teacher on telling our guys what to look for about what people might need to keep them safe at home. So again, this is another example of what these railings look like. So, and then other things we do, handheld shower heads, of course. We do toilet safety frames. We provide shower chairs, tub transfer benches. These are more like DME type of products, so we do provide them for people. We'll put the shower head up for them, that type of thing. So, a lot of the shower chairs and the tub transfer benches actually are requests from actually OTs and PTs. We get a lot of referrals from them. Toilet safety frame, shower chair, we generally get them ones with the back. That's a lot more supportive. Handheld shower head, we get nice ones. So when Costco has them on sale at $10 off, with a limit of 10, we buy all 10. As many times as we can. Trying to save some money. So transfer bench, yes.
Do you happen to tell Costco what you're buying them for, so that they'll maybe give you a bigger discount?
Oh, hadn't even
Got to
thought
work
about
it.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Hadn't
They
thought about
might.
that.
You never know.
Thanks, Wendy. I'll have to remember that next time I go
I
in.
just opened at 10 bathrooms. We're very clean people.
Right. We've put a couple of these up as well, assist poles for people. We've done some of these as well, where the steps leading down to the garage, for example, are just in such disrepair, they're actually dangerous. So these are all aluminum
With handrails.
with handrails, of course. You need the handrails. Because actually, grab bar, it's not atypical when people just have the two steps for them to ask us to put a grab bar at the entrance door to the garage, so that they can actually have something to hang on to as they do their two steps. Any more than two steps, you get too far away from the door to do that.
Do you guys take out the existing deteriorating stairs?
Yeah.
Is that part of your service?
Yep. These are threshold mats. Those are actually one of the simplest things to put up. For example, someone who may have a walker or even a wheelchair, that little lip above the doorway that people sometimes have a hard time getting up to. These threshold mats are heavy rubber. You get different thicknesses, so you can get them to actually get up to that door, and people roll up quite easily on that. So they're actually one of the simplest things you can do to help people get in the doorway without going over that lip.
They're made out of recycled pellets.
If you have a wheelchair, can you do a burnout on them?
We like the big, thick ones.
Wanted to talk to you guys too about a multi-agency collaboration we had the pleasure to work with. So we got a referral from Silver Key, case manager from Silver Key. And this is the picture doesn't really explain it very well, but those steps were in very disrepair, and it was actually dangerous. Client, of course, could not afford to do anything to repair that. We're looking at, falling over the edge, those types of things. So, Silver Key, the case manager, came and talked to David about, is there any way we can sort of help this client? So, and they had already applied to A.V. Hunter. I don't know if people know who A.V. Hunter is, but had applied to them about getting some funding from them. So, in this particular case, actually, A.V. Hunter, Silver Key, and then, of course, AAA actually threw some funds in to sort of modify this place to actually make it safer. So, put in some nice aluminum steps, put in one of these simplified railings that we talked about to keep her from falling off, and then a long grab bar to actually get her from one step to the next. So this was kind of a more simplified rather than repouring the whole concrete and that type of thing, that allowed her to say, getting in and out of that place without being falling down. So this was actually quite nice working with Silver Key and A.V. Hunter on that. So what are our challenges? Repeat visits are a challenge. People will say, I only want one grab bar. So we say, are you sure? Yep, okay. But then they call you back a few weeks later and say, well, can we have another one or two? So, again, that uses grant funds to repeat those visits. So we try to get people to sort of, or encourage them to, say, especially when they only want one, we say, maybe try two. So that's one of the challenges we have.
Monique, before you go, why do they only want one? Are they just trying to be careful that they're not taking advantage of somebody else paying for this option? I mean, no.
We don't
like,
know. Yeah, we
I just
don't
want
know.
one. I don't need a second one, I just
Oh,
want.
maybe more of a
Yeah.
prideful, like, I only need,
And we
okay,
say
okay,
It's
that's,
really much better to have them go in, and we always say, they go in and pay. We like to install them in pairs. I only want one. And we say, well, we'll do up to, would you like one by the foot? Would you like one by the, no, I just want one, or I just want the two right here. And then a week later, they go, well,
okay.
And while it's kind of a scheduling pain for us, it also, if they're working on the grant gets charged again for a trip there and a trip back and another installation, and it would be, we're trying to limit them, but we just can't, there's a point where you're just being, damn it, I'm gonna put a grab bar by your toilet, it doesn't always work. It's one of the challenges we have with repeat visits is that they realize that we're not scamming them. That's one of the things we have is, what do you mean it's of no cost to us? It's gotta be a scam. You're gonna get here and it's gonna be $1,000, or you're gonna rob us, or you're gonna, it's one of our challenges is going back a second time, sometimes a third time. Oh, I didn't know you did railings. Well, I handed you a flyer this week did railings. But that's a big challenge.
So a question I have then, as far as our council, is there anything that we can do or help provide for you so that when you do go out and there's that, we were just talking about them getting scammed, is there anything that you can think of that would help so that they would trust that this grant is something that they can feel confident in? Is there anything that we can do, or, I don't know, but something to think about, because if we could help make that a little bit better, that this is a situation where they should trust and feel confident in what they're doing, and it's difficult to help them understand what is and isn't.
In general, the way we get our referrals is either from you, which is kind of a trust thing.
Okay.
A lot of it is now word of mouth, because people go, oh, where'd you get the railing, where'd you get the grab bar? So that's now, it took a couple of years to get that traction. And the other one is that Monique in particular, does a lot of in-services and lunch and learns with all the local home health care businesses. So when their PT, their OT says, you need this, I've got the company for you, there is that trust factor.
So is there some sort of a letter that we could actually have signed that you could give to the home health agencies or something, so that when they make that referral to their client, that they know that this is the people that are with the Yellow Book? Because the Yellow Book is well-known.
Right.
They trust the Yellow Book.
Right.
So
That's a good question.
that might be,
Think
so
about
something
that.
just to think
Yeah.
about, because we're always trying to find ways that we can be of service to the providers. And if that's something that may be a slight hitch, it's not a major thing probably, but a slight hitch, that could be something that we would be able to help with.
Right. Okay, I'll have to think about that, yeah.
We have an
We do have
Yeah.
that,
the
yes.
Yellow Book and the Blue Book.
So it's just something to think about, and then maybe perhaps we can.
Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Do you guys service Park County? And if not, let's talk.
We've been asked before,
We've been
yes.
asked before. Park is a challenge to get to for us. And it would need to be, we just hired another installer, so it might get a little easier. But Park County would need to be like a day or two of nothing but Park County.
Which is easy enough for us to do, so.
Which is, but things like railings are custom ordered, have to go to the house and measure for a railing, whether interior or exterior. So that's part of the conundrum of the second trip. But grab bars, I can drive to Park County with a truck full of grab bars and put in grab bars all day.
So at the time that you're installing the grab bars, that would be the time to offer an assessment for any other type of equipment And especially if we've aligned several appointments for you that day, then it would make it worthwhile for that return trip. Would that be the process?
That would probably be the process. And now going into winter, I would hate to have that whole thing lined up and get snowed out.
Well, there is a lot of misnomer about that. You can get into Park County.
Understood.
Really, the big problem is going over Kenosha Pass, but even then, it's not closed often. So, I drive into Denver and Colorado Springs all the time from my Park County, so it is accessible. I think there's just a lot of, and mostly, too, I'll give you an idea, Bailey, which is the largest populace, is what's called the Banana Belt. And because of the way the mountains go, we get less snow than they do in a lot of other areas. And so that may be some motivation. We are the most populated, especially with seniors, and we have less snow because of that weather pattern. So,
Nice.
But I have to go through not the Banana Belt to get to
yeah. Well, not much of one, though. Not much. Yeah, it's not bad.
you. We can talk about it.
Yeah, please
Us
do.
city folk are scared to drive on that snowy road.
City folk.
Yeah, we don't want to slip on the way to the Banana Belt, right? Lisa?
I have a suggestion for the repeat visits. As a provider, you have the authority to write a policy around that and put some boundaries around when you will and will not do repeat visits.
Yes, we bandy that back and forth, and we're going to actually talk about the next thing with the policy that we put in place.
Or we're looking to put in place, yes.
And AAA staff would be, well, I would be happy to review those and make any suggestions.
That was my next question is, so if we do have a policy, what's the process to?
You don't have to have us review it and approve it. So there's not a process other than it helps you manage your resources
Right, okay.
and put some boundaries around that. Those
Right.
are things that
The
you can do.
the second one is probably the one, we call them the takers, whether that's appropriate or not.
Yeah, even though you
Oh,
aren't
sorry.
required to put that policy through us for any kind of approval at the AAA level, I would certainly encourage it
Right,
so
yeah.
that whether it's just within staff or a recommendation from our front desk folks, that everybody's just on the same page.
Right.
So that we can, especially with the repeat visits, we can begin that conversation sooner rather than later, so that they know what those policies are,
Right.
so they're not surprised when you walk in the door.
Okay,
Because
thank
going
you.
for a railing, let's say they don't realize on their first visit that they want a railing. That is then, for a railing, 2 more trips to their home. And that's just, we're just trying to avoid that. It's a poor allocation of limited resources and limited funds. Go ahead.
Right.
Is there a way to do it formally as an assessment? In other words, set that first appointment up as an assessment where you're just going out to assess what they need, and then you set up for
Yeah,
follow-up?
making the 2 trips again.
Yeah.
And people want us, we go to the house, the truck is loaded with grab bars. I buy grab bars by the pallet. So when we go out, people say, I need you to come and do an assessment. Our general phone conversation with them is, we generally, particularly for grab bars, our evaluation and installation appointments are all one. We come out ready to install. Because going back, and a grab bar, depending on what surface we're mounting it into, it can be a relatively quick thing, or it can be an hour-long ordeal per grab bar. So we generally go out and we allocate, the installers have a block of time that they can be at the house. So we generally do that evaluation and installation, particularly for grab bars. Again, just trying to cut down. If they want extra stuff, most of the installers can usually evaluate for just about anything. If it's something really oddball, then I go to do the evaluation.
And if we know they want a railing, we'll do the assessment for the railing at that grab bar installation visit. Then it's just automatically then a second visit to install, but that's okay, because we plan for that, right? Because they're all custom made. It's when they come back, so.
What's the time between when they call to make an appointment for you guys to go out there, and what is that time?
Less than a week.
What if you, I know you don't, that's the cost of your available services ahead of time, or email it if you can. I always try to email. And then before their appointment, then there's one more follow-up call of, is there any of these other things that might be beneficial for you so that you guys can be prepared? Is that?
That's a good idea. That would be,
Right, because I do email them the form, if they're, the in-home assessment form, on people who can do email, so that would be
Right.
easy to add an extra, because I email them the policies as well, the grievance policy and the contribution policies, I email all of that. And if I have time, I mail those when people don't have email accessibility or printer accessibilities, don't always have time. There's the mail service. But yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think it's also important to remember that you're working from a fixed amount of funding per year.
Yes.
So every time they make 2 to 3 visits to one place, that's somebody that's not going to get served on the backside
Right.
because of that. So we certainly appreciate the attention to trying to make it as efficient as possible.
it also then goes to number 2.
To number 2, what we call the takers. Luckily, and like I say, this may not be appropriate to call them that, but and luckily we don't see them.
Internal term.
It's an internal term, no longer internal. But they're the people that realize, oh, well then I want 2 grab bars here and I want 4 over there, and oh, you do a railing, well I want 2 railings out here, and so they end up, because it's at no cost to them, wanting basically everything we have to offer. And those are a little more harder. Those are the ones that we have to sit down now and decide, how do we approach them about, okay, we need to make this grant fund, these grant dollars help more people. There's a limited amount of service that you can get. And we don't know if it should be based on a dollar value or services, or anyways, we're sort of in that process of sitting down, and because we just had one recently again this week, and it's, okay, we have to sit down and do something about that. So if you guys have some suggestions.
So Monique, one thing I would add, because it looks like you have the 2 opposite ends, the ones that won't take advantage of what you're there for,
Right.
and so you're coming out for extra trips, and the ones that take advantage of everything they can get.
Yes.
I like Lisa's suggestion about being able to write a policy. I think that your concern and attention to making sure that the funds last as long as possible is really admirable. So maybe one of the things in that policy could be, if, these need to be done at the same time, so, at least 2, if not possibly 3 grab bars, regardless of who it is or what this, because you can put them anywhere. But then also limited to 2 services. So whether it's the handrail and some grab bars, or grab bars and something else.
They really need 3.
Well, but you can make that assessment as a case by case, but as a standard, what's appropriate, that's something that you'll have to decide. But I do think, I'm okay, I think, for all of us saying, making sure that it lasts as long as possible and that everyone can at least be safe with the appropriate type of grab bars they need. Yes, we'd like to have as much as possible, but we're the ones who know how much money there is.
Right.
And we appreciate that concern, so.
Our general on-the-phone conversation with people is, it's 2 or 3 grab bars per household. And that will get you 2 in the shower and 1 by the toilet, or 2 in the shower and 1 is a towel rack. That's the other thing we do a lot of, is people pull the towel racks out of the walls. And the installers know that if they ask for a 4th, they can make them feel really special and say, don't tell my boss that I'm doing this, but, and they put in a 4th bar. So the external policy is generally 2 to 3, the internal policy is 3 to 4. But the takers are the people who go, I want 2 here and 1 on the ceiling and 1 in the closet, because sometimes I get a little woozy when I'm looking for the light switch. And they just know that they're getting the stuff at no cost to them, and they are just gathering as much as they can. So we have to cut them off. We had that, the policy started in our first year. There was a lady who we didn't have a policy in place. She put 11 grab bars in her house. And my installers said, don't argue with the customer, do whatever they ask. And then she wanted a custom welded railing that had to go through her HOA and stuff. And I said, this lady is just a taker. And we then put in 3 to 4 grab bars per household policy. But we still struggle with with people with taking additional services. One of the things we've done is that, you saw the very simple rails we do. They're very simple. They're simple and utilitarian. They're black and white. And if you want something with curly cues and whatever, I'm going to send the same welder to your house, but that's on you. And that's something that our installers say right off the bat. That's a custom welding job. I have a guy we can refer to you, but that's going to be out of your pocket. We're not going to, because these people get crazy with trying to, it doesn't match. Yeah.
You know, what we do, because in dental, I mean, that could go way crazy. We could blow all our.
Right, yeah.
And look at a few people. So we've said like $1 amount, but then there's the takers, we have the takers as well and stuff. But what we've done is we say, we're gonna do the crucial, what needs to be done, you know, with this amount of funds that we have designated for you. And then as we get closer to the end of our grant cycle, if we have excess funds available, then we will do more, we can do more.
Right.
But first, we need to spread our money for as many people. So we
Right.
kind of, we watch how much money we have, and then as we're getting closer, you know, then we can do it that
Right.
way.
That's a good suggestion.
To your point about policies, I think it's really important to go ahead and talk to Jody and Lisa and the folks here and develop some policies, because it really needs to be based on need, not
Right. Well,
want, which we've already decided that's not a
Right.
good idea. And we, for example, our homemaker policy, that's based on ADLs and a brief evaluation that determines the need of that individual, and then they're awarded the number of hours. It's really no different with what you're doing. We're not going to put grab bars in just because you want grab bars. We're going to put grab bars in because you need grab bars. So it's
Yes, but you can be top on ADLs and IADLs and still need a grab bar because you're 80.
Yeah.
And you don't have, and you score well on everything, and there's nothing that ticks us, there's nothing on the application that makes us alert you, hey, I have someone who's not eating. So they're fine on that scale, but they just need grab bars in their house. So I don't know if we can.
You can build that into the policy. And so I would strongly encourage you to work with these folks and just kind of develop something that works so that you have something to fall back on. You don't have to have your installers trying to make a value judgment while they're in the field.
Right, okay, great. Thank you, guys. Yeah, this unexpected benefits, basically, we've been able to refer people to nutritional counseling. We actually, because of last month, and speaking with Eyesight, actually, have been able to refer people who are visually challenged to their group as well. And again, as we mentioned before, many home health agencies, OTs and PTs are actually one of the main resources for us, or referrals for us. But word of mouth is actually has become one of the bigger things this year, which is actually kind of interesting. It's like, oh, you just did this work for us, which is actually kind of cool, actually. So yeah, so basically that's it.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It's not only informative, but I think you got some good suggestions about the potential tweaks on the system.
Yes.
Policy-wise and the rest of it.
Exactly. Thank you.
So I think the next item on our information, our presenters, Michelle, gets to come up here and talk about the community dental health. Or it used to be senior mobile dental.
It's just, it's pieces, kit. It's a kit. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys all hear me okay? All right, so I'm Amy, the community liaison, and I also am Michelle's assistant. So this is Michelle Baca. Hi. Our executive director and founder. So I'm first going to go through our slideshow, and then we'll talk about some other things on the way as well.
Just the down arrow on the keyboard.
Okay, thank you. It's my first time.
Lots of pressure.
I know. Tough crowd. Okay, so our mission. So we Our mission is to provide a dental home for all low-income, uninsured, and underinsured people needing assistance to obtain low-cost dental services. We believe that oral health care is important to everyone's overall health for sound body, mind, and spirit. And Michelle did found our organization back in 2006.
And so one of the reasons to align with our mission is with our name change that we went through last year, going from senior mobile dental to community dental health, is just that there's such a great disconnect between dental and medical. And there's just so much oral disease that we find, that we see in people that's affecting their physical health, that we really wanted to emphasize that part of our mission, that to bring oral health into overall health care. So that was one of the reasons why we changed into community dental health. Plus, people thought that we worked out of a motorhome or a bus as senior mobile dental, which we never did, and that our target population are older adults, but there's a lot of people under 60 that can't afford dental care and need help with that too. So.
And we have kept the senior mobile dental name with our nursing home, our care that we go into the nursing homes, assisted facilities, and memory care facilities, because those people you just can't. It's too abruptive to them and the way they live to bring them out of that. And once we get them going, we keep them on a regular hygiene schedule, and so they're feeling better and healthy, and they can eat and socialize, and it just really makes a huge difference. So, but that is still kind of dubbed that same name.
Yeah.
So you do have a mobile facility then? You do have the way to go to someone?
Yes, but it's not, we provide in-house on-site care, not with a bus or motorhome.
We actually go into the facility and set up in the facility. So, we've got our office here in Colorado Springs and one in Pueblo. And we do provide the basic dental health care needs, the cleanings, exams, x-rays, fillings, extractions, and denture services. We don't do the high-end costs, such as like implants, root canals, because we can't get those costs down to being affordable. And if we were to do one of those treatments, that would be money we're taking away from doing the essential needs, for people. So some people would prefer that, but we could treat 20 people for one implant, probably, if not more. So. And again, our senior mobile dental program that name still exists for that in-home program for those folks. And here I just kind of did a breakdown of the number of people that we help in the different areas. The biggest is in Colorado Springs, about 64%, and then we're up to 29% in Pueblo, and then about 7% of the services go into the nursing homes.
So our nursing home program has declined a bit, which is good and bad. I mean, bad because that's my passion and my whole original intent in providing care. But the good is that there's more providers now doing this. So when I first started, I was the only one going into the nursing homes. And so that's just a great change in our industry, in the dental industry. And so that's why there's, each year. We still have our strong nursing home program, but we've got other people out there helping too. So that's huge.
And then here's our funding comparison. And as you can see, OA is really up there. We're up to 37% of our fundings for our folks, so we thank you guys for that.
Yes.
It makes such a big, big difference, and it kind of goes, down from there. I won't go through each one.
So, and private pay is people who do not qualify for the funds, either if the age requirements don't meet, or they're just they can afford to pay our lower fees, or if they do have dental insurance, we do put that in private pay, because there's a lot of people who have dental insurance but still can't afford some of the dental procedures that are put out there for them. So like, for example, if they went to a private practice and they needed a crown, well, as you guys, some of you may know, it's still, $500, $600, $700 out of pocket that they would have to pay with insurance. So we're trying to, just kind of help everybody stay healthy.
You might explain what CSDG is. I think a lot
Oh.
of people may not know that.
Colorado Senior Dental Grant. So that is a state grant that also provides dental care. So but it has a financial limit on the federal poverty guidelines. And so where there's a lot of people, and this is why your guys' support is so huge, and you can see, there's so many people who do not qualify for that grant because they're just right over that threshold. And as you can see by those numbers, that's a lot of people who don't qualify, but still cannot afford dental care. And that's where your support has helped us hit those people and find them and take care of them.
And then here's just kind of a percentage of the type of treatments and where the money goes. And we kind of lump summed all of the preventative care because that's huge. Once you get these people in to get that preventative care, you save all that other money. You keep their mouths healthy.
And so that is another huge, I love this number. This number is testimony to what you guys have been helping us over the years now. Before, when we were accessing these people, there was just so much disease and neglect. So it was surgical and denture. Those numbers were way high. So now that we've been routinely being able to take care of these people, now they're in the preventive stage. We're ahead of their curve of disease, and so the surgical and denture now are the new people that we're accessing. So does that make sense? Did I explain that well? This is the hugest thing of all. I'm so proud of with your support that you let us do that. And so with last year's numbers and the funds that we've received, we were able to see an additional, on top of everybody that we've been now maintaining their health, 140 more people that we have taken from disease that we've been treating and phasing them now into health and preventative and maintenance care. So
the unduplicated patients are the 369, and of those, 104 are veterans. And then that appointments is 1,057. So
yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
I want to tell the RAC board that I was a beneficiary of your services because one day when there was a RAC meeting, I happened to have been able to get an appointment right after.
Yeah. It was weird how it all happened. It's like I called and we're like on the phone back and forth. It was the fair day. So, we were like walking around. And so all of a sudden Pam, the office manager's calling me. She's like, wait, we just got a cancellation. I'm like, wait, let's make this happen, can you get a ride and all that. So
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we do, we are very responsive as we really try to get people in immediately, especially if there is an acute situation. And so that's another big goal or factor that we try to do is, not have people have to wait for weeks or whatever to get an appointment.
Well, I was just going to say, along with what Joyce was, her recommendation, years ago, my mom signed up just because she wanted to check you out. She's like, well, okay, this will be good. but also because she wanted to be able to see what you were doing. And one of her frustrations being in Boston for this last year is that she doesn't have access to you guys. So, yeah, so she's like,
But
oh.
she was here a few weeks
yes,
ago, wasn't she?
She
So
came
even
back
though I'm buried
for
in
a
my
grandchild's
office.
wedding, and you got on the schedule of those 4 days that she was in town.
Yeah.
And there really isn't a better recommendation that you can get than from the people who are, not just our seniors, but the people who are actually a part of supporting you as well. And if we're the ones who are actually using the services as well, that really does speak to what you've been doing all these years.
Wow.
I remember when.
Yes.
Chris, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. We've spoken in the past about trying to make a mass appointment, bringing patients to your location. Would there be a process of actually phone assessments if we were going to arrange such? So versus us showing up with a bunch of people that you're going to have to put through an exam process, and then we'd have to do a follow-up visit and maybe a follow-up visit. Would there be a possibility of doing have them call, say, hey, here's what I know I have? Obviously, it may change once they're getting a professional assessment, but as a recommendation, would that be a process?
Yeah, and that would be an efficient process with that. So if we did schedule a day for this to happen, that would be part of that intake, because then we would make sure that we would have the hygiene side ready and also the dental side if there is toothaches involved. So we are booked out, on like whole days. So, it'll take some planning to open up a day and kind of keep that put together or whatever.
Well, we're doing education presentations now with our meetings. We have a monthly meeting once a month. And then we're doing some things in conjunction with the Senior Coalition. So that might be an opportunity for you to come out and do an education session. And we also have a local dentist that's moved into our area. He may be willing to let you utilize his space if there was ever an opportunity for you to come to us. I don't know, but
Right, yeah.
it would be, I think, a good opportunity for you to come out and try to reach some of the seniors with your presence first, and then go from us trying to set up a mass appointment day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have cards or brochures?
Yes.
With your phone number on them?
I actually
Okay.
I put a big stack in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's like, if any of you have, we'll jump to that with that great question. If you guys, where you're at, if you have places to share information when we put our brochures out, I brought a pretty big stack, and if you need more, you can definitely let me know as well. So, and I've got my contact information on the end of this slide presentation, so I don't know if we want to go through all the facts.
No, let's see what's next.
There's a few patient comments, and I wanted to back up too on talking about referrals. I want to say our biggest referral is from existing patients.
Word of
people I
mouth.
heard, yeah, a lot of word of mouth. That is definitely our top referral source. I know you were talking about that as well. So-
But as you guys know also, I just believe so strongly in collaborations, and so we have our networking back and forth. We've worked with Silver Key and Vita.
Yeah, Senior Blue Book. And as far as for example, because when you're in there, the dentist and hygienist are in there, they're talking to the patients, and when they first come in, we talk to them, see what's going on. There was one patient that mentioned to the dentist that they were about ready to be evicted. And so she came to me because I've got a lot of resources in my head. And so I instantly connected them with Silver Key because I know they've got a great program for that to help, so that wouldn't happen. So, you get, you're close and personal, so they start to open up. You gain that trust, so they actually share this information. So we try and gather as many resources and share it with them to give them as much. So it's one of those collaborations, partner, and we do that a lot.
Was there a video tell them about the video?
Yeah, we shared a couple of videos because we've got our little mascot, which is the little teeth with the eyes, the big eyes. And the first one that our awesome receptionist put together, she put it together with the Senior Blue Book. She had them in there reading the Blue Book, Senior Blue Book, and then it was really cute. And then I'm like, we need to do one with Invita because Invita shows up. So I went out there and grabbed the Invita driver, and we had the tooth going up the lift and going down, and so we put a little blurb out for them as well. So that was kind of fun.
It's all on our Facebook page if you ever want to see them. They're pretty fun little
So
cute
any other fun
videos.
ideas? So we got some great. So that's we love to share, what we do to help, our seniors and the populations, get them in an overall healthier state, whatever we can do and try and do as well. So these guys and that's.
And so, with the accomplishments, like we just touched on with that previous slide, is just really listening to what's going on besides their mouth, what's going on with them as a person, and what's prohibited them from receiving dental care, so we know what these barriers are to overcome those. And, a lot of them, it's financial, and a lot of people have been burned where they go for the 1999 exam and then go for the exam, and then they're told they need $10,000, $15,000 worth of work, which is just completely out of the question. So then all they do then is go home, and then it just keeps getting worse and worse. And so trying to overcome that perception that dental care is thousands and thousands of dollars, and we've just really developed a system and a way to really manage their health at an affordable rate, and cost.
Jen?
Do you have specialty providers that you refer to for some of that work that you're not able to do, like root canals and
Yes.
implants?
Yep. Yes. And we've established relationships with them that we're confident that as soon as they see our quote gold mine of work that needs to be done, that they're not going to go and try and do all this high-end work. We have a relationship where they're going to focus on what we've referred and not look at all the other areas of disease that needs to be addressed, because we're addressing that. And so that's one of our challenges is overcoming that perception of dental. Whether, I don't know if it's just healthcare in general, but there's a big perception of dental care being unaffordable, and the ethics behind it as well. And so that's one of the things that I'm proud of, is that we're known for ethical quality care. Some of the other challenges that we have is sometimes the complicated health histories. And so everybody, all of our older adult patients have a big health history and medications and stuff. And so some of our younger dentists kind of freak out about these big health histories. And, so then we have to kind of educate our dental providers that, okay, yes, it's high blood pressure, but we still can do this work, we can't send them away. So that's been just a little complication of, knowing what can be done and what cannot be done with the complicated health history as well. And so that's just been maybe, I guess, an internal challenge for us. The high-end dental advertisements. So we get a lot of people calling in, expecting to have implants. And oh, well, if you don't give us implants, then you're no good, And it's like, well, no, that's just, a false expectation, with that. But we are working on that. I interviewed a dentist that can do implants, and we might be able to make that at a affordable rate. So, that's one of my goals for next year, I guess. We're already in the fall, so. But, especially if I can scoop this guy up and have him join our team. But, so, these high-end procedures are not out of our reach, we just need to find the right providers to help us do it and the right labs, before crowns were, as you guys know, are thousands of dollars, but we found labs to make the crowns not as expensive, and so that we're going to be able to offer those on a kind of an individual basis and stuff like that.
Michelle, if
So-
there's ever a situation where you're trying to work with someone new and trying to have them drink the water and get excited, in the Kool-Aid, kind of in a good, positive way, if you want to call me, and I'm sure there's several of us who'd be willing to go to that appointment with you, to vouch for what you're doing from our perspective, also to say this is a valuable, necessary service that our community needs, and what can we do to help you get on the team?
Wow.
So rather than it just being from you guys,
Yeah.
if that's something that would be helpful, please, contact us, because that would be I know if I was a provider and somebody approached me and said, hey, well, can you take a big cut because this is a cool thing we do for seniors, they might not be as open to it. But if it's a professional who is actually on this council and we can give that clout from the backup side
Oh, that's
to then
fabulous.
give a stamp of approval to say, would you please seriously consider, this could be your community pro bono work for the community. But sometimes you really do need, and kind of like what David and Monique go through too, is like that stamp of approval, the fact that you're legitimate and this is an appropriate place, that if they're going to put their time and money from their training, towards something that's going to be valuable for them as a pro bono or somewhat pro bono option for them.
Yeah.
We'll
Oh,
be
thank
up. I
you.
mean, we'll step up. We'll do that. Absolutely.
That's huge. That's huge. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will. Thank you.
So we'll get that young guy and we'll get him to do implants
Right?
for nothing.
I know.
And then for the thank
I
you,
would
I'll
still
get one.
pay him, but not what he would make.
I don't need that.
I'll pay
But does that make sense? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that would be very helpful to bring somebody in and
Yeah.
help them drink the Kool-Aid.
Thank you.
That's right.
I have a question.
Sure.
I know that you guys had requested some funding for putting an on-site dental lab. Has that been successful or made any difference in your abilities to
Yes.
service?
Yes. So, and that was one of the other things with, that I wanted to conclude with the equipment support that we received from you guys. So what we were able to purchase has allowed our denture technician to do more same-day work. So if there was a reline or something like that, to build the dentures and partials still goes off-site because that's more procedures and equipment and stuff like that. But it has allowed us to do same-day relines instead of having them, because what was happening before is that they would drop off their denture in the morning and then come back the next day. So now we can do it, drop it off in the morning, come back at the end of the day. And so with that equipment, it allowed us to process it on site. So that's huge. The other thing that we bought was a dental laser. So even though we're not doing implants yet and stuff, but I want them, the poorest of the poor is treated, in my philosophy, is the same as the richest of the rich. And so being able to give them high-end care at our fees makes me feel happy that they are being treated regardless of what their income level is. And so they're impressed, like when they see our digital x-rays and stuff that we do, or now with the laser, they would never even think that they could have a laser help with their gum tissues and stuff like that. And so that's just important for me, and I appreciate that so much, that you guys have given us that capability to step up right what other private practices do and what they even don't do. There's still a lot of private practices that don't have that technology that we're using. So thank you, guys.
Any other questions, comments? Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And I think we're now moving into the AAA, soon-to-be retired AAA Director, Joe Urban, his comments.
Thanks, Dave. Don't have a lot to go over this month. One thing that I did want to bring up is some things that are happening at the national level that ultimately have a good deal of impact on this organization and all the AAAs in general, actually. The Older American Act, which we've talked about frequently, is under debate right now. The Senate is currently, I think it's called Health, Education, and Labor Committee, or possibly others. There's a Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, which might be the Senate. I can't remember which one's which considers the issues relative to the Older Americans Act. And then in the House, there's a very similar committee. The House has passed a preliminary budget that included some moderate increases to funding for the Older Americans Act during the reauthorization. The Senate is still debating that. There's some significant disagreement, I guess you could say, between a couple of the senators that sit on that committee, basically around the funding formula. As many of you know, we are a rapidly growing senior state, as are North Carolina, Arizona, and Alaska, and a few others. The senator from North Carolina who sits on that committee has been pretty vehement about the fact that the funding formula, which hasn't been adjusted for pretty close to 10 years, needs to have some adjustment. We in the rapidly growing states have been losing money at a pretty large rate for over 10 years. The folks who are in the predominantly Rust Belt states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, have been losing populations during that time period, yet they are very reluctant to have their programs gutted to give it to other states. So at some point there's going to end up being a compromise, and we can get that bill passed and get the Older American Act reauthorization. Both versions that I've seen have been a 5-year reauthorization, which is a very positive thing. As many of you know, last time it was just a 3-year authorization. So this would be a much better thing to get it back into the cycle, which it should have been, which is a 5-year reauthorization. Melissa just handed me a stack of stuff. Yeah, wouldn't mind. And this is kind of what I'm going to go through. We've had a pretty busy year, I guess you could say. And thank you to Melissa for kind of summarizing all this and putting everything together so I can just stand up here and flap about it. The numbers are pretty much clear. I'd be happy to answer any questions about them. The one clarification I'd want to put is we did not do 5,000 home care vouchers. We did 5,000 hours of home care vouchers. So sometimes that can represent 12 hours per person. Sometimes it can represent 4 hours per person. The INA numbers are incredible. So to B's credit and everybody else that works at that front desk, 7,500 calls is a lot. You can get your calculator out and figure that out on a daily basis, but they are busy answering front-end calls, and that's the core, that's the essence of this place, is the INA that we give to people. So we've always said, since I've been here, certainly, we say, we may not solve your problem, but we can always get you to someone who can. So that's a very important thing.
I've got the meeting minutes. Okay. Thank you.
Lots happening on the program development side. Obviously, now that we've got someone full-time in that position, it's afforded us the opportunity to go forward with a lot of things that we just flat didn't have the time to do before. So Melissa can maybe, I think probably in the future, she'll probably give you a little bit better update on all the things that are on the horizon, but there's lots going on. we're heading into Arts Month. Actually, I'm going to let her talk about that in just a second. She doesn't know she's going to, but we'll let her give a short spiel about the things that are on the short-term horizon, and then some of the things that we've been working on for quite some time that are starting to come to fruition. The portal is very close to completion. Met with those folks this week, and it's not too far away from being rolled out and available to folks on the web. And then just the ongoing things that we prepare for every year. The open enrollment, which opens for Medicare on October 15th. As many of you know, that's a huge influx for us. 2 years ago, we saw roughly 1,600 people either come through our doors or talk to us on the phone about their Medicare services, and that's a very busy time for us. Another thing I might bring up, because if there's any of the Medicare counselors in here, they will slap me if I don't mention this. There's been a pretty significant change to Medicare this year in that we cannot just give you the information you need. You have to have a Medicare.gov account to do that. So if you've already established that, or you can do it before you come in, super. A lot of folks don't have computers. They don't even know that they have to have a Medicare.gov account to be able to get the information on their Part D. So that means everybody that comes through the door that doesn't have one of those accounts already established, we have to do that for them before we can even start into the stuff that we normally do. So we anticipate that it's going to take quite a bit longer to do those appointments with each person, because the people we serve, a lot of them do not have those accounts.
Joe, is that because they want to be able to track back to that person, like by through email or things like that? But I mean, did anything come down as to why they're expecting this when these folks don't have access in their own homes, that they're not going to be getting back these email? I mean, I'm just confused as to why that is part of it.
I think I understand a little bit of the reason. Number one is tracking.
Okay.
It's the ability to understand what's going on. But the second part is we have seen for years that Medicare is moving more and more towards a self-service model. Matter of fact, we are now teaching classes on how to use Plan Finder, which tells you how to do your own Med D enrollment. So the goal is to have it be more of a self-sufficient system and a little bit less reliant on our folks to do that for you. It's a positive thing. We're never going to run out of business, I'll tell you that, because just the demographics of what's coming at us is important, but also it's not a simple system. It's complicated, and there's always going to be a need to ask those questions of a qualified SHIP counselor. But if you're able to do the easy stuff ahead of time, it just makes our job a whole lot easier. And so it is a very positive thing.
Is it something that someone could, well, this isn't my situation, but let's say my mom wanted to come in and she could establish an account but perhaps have my email account? Because some people don't even have an account. But at least a family member, that she would want to choose, that would be, what do you think?
I believe all that information is self-entered. So she can put whatever email she wants to down.
Okay, because that actually, in some ways, might be helpful, just because at least someone within the family knows what the plan is and what was chosen and might be getting updates. But there's just so many that are never going to access. So, okay, I was curious.
Well, we can set up education programs again at the library. If this is going to be a part of the assessment before they can even be assessed, educate. Let them know that now there's a new thing for your Medicare. We'll set up sessions at the library that they can come in and utilize that, and somebody be there to guide them through that process.
And it's a one-time enrollment. When you get on there, you're done. You're enrolled. You're good. So yeah, I think there's ways to address it. The other thing that we talked about yesterday that's pretty important is I think we underestimate the tech savvy of older adults. People are a lot more technologically advanced in their senior years than we give them credit for. We have even we in the business have a stereotypical image of seniors relative to technology, and there are folks who don't have a computer, don't want a computer, go across the street so they don't have to be next to an ATM. But there is a much larger percentage than we think who do know their way around a computer. Yeah, and Vita's a perfect example. Well, Dave, we'll let Dave tell that story at some point.
A 95-year-old who sets up transportation globally.
Super.
You want to hit some highlights of upcoming events? Impromptu, without knowing that you were going to do it?
So I think I'll just take a minute to talk about October, which is Arts Month. And it's Arts Month everywhere. But it turns out El Paso County actually does a pretty big celebration for Arts Month. And so for Teller and Park County folks, if you aren't already like doing something, you might take advantage of any of your groups that are doing some type of art activity to encourage people to get out and explore that during October, because October is Arts Month. And so back a couple of months ago, our executive director of the Cultural Office for the Pikes Peak region talked to us, the Area Agency on Aging, about doing some collaboration during Arts Month to encourage folks who might be more homebound or more isolated or more alone to get out and do some things during Arts Month. And so that's what we're doing. And on the back of the table is a flyer that talks about a couple of different events, 3 events each week that we've kind of highlighted and are targeting, primarily here in El Paso County, but I encourage people to think about it in Park County. Our gal from Teller isn't here, but there are some really great plays that are happening in Cripple Creek, but they do cost a little bit of money. The events that we've picked here in El Paso County, most of them are of no charge, and there's a mix of day and nighttime activities, and a really important opportunity to get folks out because social isolation and loneliness are such a big deal. And so we're actually at the Artini tomorrow night, which is the launch night for Arts Month. And we are going to actually be making pins that say Arts Month on them and then have the Pikes Peak Area Agency on Aging stickers on them and hand them out to folks over 60, and people who are showing up at events. When they're there, will know that our people are there. We can kind of hang out together, be together. And so that's what's happening in October. And so, again, encourage everybody to enjoy Arts Month and do something new, a new cultural experience that you haven't had before. So any questions, thoughts? Okay, awesome.
There, in your packet, obviously, are 2 calendars that outline a lot of what's coming up. Lots going on. And at the same time, I would highlight...
They're not.
Oh.
They must be back here.
They were in the... Yeah, are they in the back? Are these in the back? They were printed. That was in the email packet.
Yeah, probably.
They may be in your email packet. They may not have printed out. One other thing that to note is the AAA programming, in particular Medicare 101s and Social Security 101s, are now being done via webinar, which is a really big step. It's a huge thing. The policy and communication folks have helped us with that. And so now you can access that programming basically from anywhere. And in particular, the remote areas which have difficulty with internet accessibility with broadband can access those oftentimes via a group site. So we've got a lot of libraries and churches and community centers that are setting up watch parties. So if you're in Trinidad, or if you're 10 miles outside of Trinidad and you don't have good access, you can go in to the AAA in Trinidad and watch the entire Medicare 101 presentation. So big opportunities for us to be able to spread that word actually statewide in a little bit better fashion than what we've been doing.
Joe, but that's still at the specific times of when the webinar is on. It's not,
Correct.
It's something that's recorded that they could play when they choose to.
The next step,
Okay.
which is
Yes.
on the horizon, is to be able to record those and put them on the website
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
as a
And
podcast.
I guess the reason I was asking those questions earlier about, as far as with the Medicare and setting up the account, would it be of any assistance? And the only reason this occurred to me is that currently right now we're preparing for the Senior Resource Council's holiday dinner dance, and we're doing a phone bank. And so those of us who are taking those are helping to register people for that event. Would it be of any help that while people are in here waiting, that there be a couple of volunteers who would be willing to set up the account before they go and talk to your counselor?
I'm sure our folks would love to talk to you. We've actually,
Well,
yesterday...
because that might be something that we could do for 1 or 2 hours of the whole time period. But on the busy days that like Mondays or Fridays are the busy days, if anybody has, but be able to have a laptop, get that, at least as they're waiting for their appointment with the counselor, that's a simple thing that we could set that up. I'm just thinking of ways to make life easier for you guys.
We would love to do that. And we actually talked about that very thing yesterday, setting up the small conference room with some computers so that the accounts could be set up before you have to sit down with the counselor and do the actual hands-on about your drug plan. So,
I feel like there's
yes.
some sort of high school around here that has, students that need to come in and set things up. It's the perfect intergenerational.
We are all ears and open to any suggestions.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking about that. I'm like, well, but there's got to be ways that I don't have the information on the counseling side for the plans and all that, but as far as getting online, getting their name, getting whatever password they want, whatever.
Boy Scout troop that needs some volunteer hours?
Yeah, but it's not during the daytime when they're on school, though. That's the problem. Yeah.
This is important enough to get them out of school.
Well, hey, my son is an Eagle Scout and has moved on. So, but I'm saying there's options that maybe those of us who understand the situation might be able to volunteer an hour or two to help out whenever the counselors think it's the most appropriate.
We would love to have that help. Lisa?
Caveat is they have to apply through the PPACG and also be background checked.
Which is,
under 18
yeah.
wouldn't have any information on a background check because they're under 18.
Mhm.
So it probably wouldn't work for people under 18. So
All right,
they would have to go.
and there's a college tech class somewhere here.
It is an option. It does have some hoops to jump through, but it's an option.
Yeah, it's not impossible, but it's just some boxes that need to be.
So if you would offer that to the team and see if it would be of that, because if you're that concerned about it taking more time that they don't already have, that might be something to look through, or at least get it started so maybe the last 2 weeks of open enrollment, it'd be ready to go. Maybe not at the beginning, but maybe those last 2 crazy weeks.
It's a great idea.
I think not just within those of us on the council, but I know we have some other professionals within our industry. I think you would be willing to help out with that. So.
Okay, we're 5 minutes to noon. We've been going for 2 hours. Joe, do you have some other final words you'd like to
just
throw out?
a simple-
At the end of a 5-year career?
A simple thank you to this group. I think I've noted several times in the past that some committees that support AAAs throughout the state, many do not have the quality of folks that we have here. And it has been my pleasure for the last 4 years to work with such a high standard, to have folks that know their business, to have folks who are consumers and know what's the right thing they need and what the areas of concentration are. So just a simple thank you for your time and your dedication to making people's lives better. I have a great deal of confidence that the future is bright with Mr. Barker in my former chair, as he has much the same experience as me and even more in a lot of areas. So I think going forward you're very good. The leadership at the PPACG, Andy and everybody down below him, is fully committed to serving seniors and the program and the mission that this place has. So a simple thank you for what you do to make that happen.
Joe, you had comments that you want to make them now, or do you want to save it for discussion? Okay. So the RAC chair report. So the only thing I'd kind of like to point out here before we get to the actual farewelling of Joe here, I think what we've seen today, and we've remarked on it in previous RAC meetings, is that there's a good interplay between the expertise of the members here and also between individual providers. We heard from the homemakers here, we heard about dental today, but we've heard others, and it's a really interesting and important interplay where the information is shared across the providers with prompting by the RAC members. As Joe said, it really is a tribute to the dedication of the members here for really investing their time and their thinking, their brain power in trying to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, the expansion of service, the better delivery of service, all of those types of things. So Having said that, I think it really is a testament to Joe's leadership for this past 4 years. I think that what we've seen here in the individual month-by-month presentations and in the discussions, the subcommittee meetings, the detailed discussions that we've had, it really does reflect very favorably on Joe's dedication and his commitment and his passion for seniors and for this organization here in the three-county area. So, having said that, I think I'm just going to kind of say on the rest of this organization, we'll get to the meeting. We'll do that after this presentation. I would like to get, well, let's do the meeting first. Okay, so next meeting is the 31st of October, okay? And it's at 10 o'clock. I think that form says 9 o'clock. It is at 10 o'clock, okay? All meetings are at 10 o'clock now. Thanks to our gentleman here from Teller County, Park County. And then we had to have a discussion about the November meeting because of the conflict with Thanksgiving, which we can't move. So I think we decided at the last meeting that we were looking at that first part of December to host the meeting or call the meeting on the 5th of December, 5 December, and that would be at 10 o'clock. And that will be an abbreviated end-of-the-year potluck meeting. So, and we'll have details on what to bring in the rest of it. In the past, we've had, good snack food. We've had some pretty good, I don't know, a bunch of different things. So anyway, it'll be a good time. So that's on the 5th of December is what we're looking at there. So what I'd like to do now, I think, since before we adjourn, is to formally recognize this gentleman here. And there's a two-part thing, okay? So there's a presentation of stuff, but I really want the RAC members part of this. It's not just Dave, here's your plaque, here's your gift, whatever it is. It really is the members here, and we also want to have a photo of this. So, what I would like to do at this point, let's just do this. I'll say some words here, and then we'll have you receive the gift, okay? So in here, this is the, on behalf of the RAC members, for your 4 years of service, for your wonderful leadership, inspiration, and dedication. This is a small token of our appreciation for all that you've done. And
Can I open it?
You may open that.
Oh, thank you.
Another coveted plaque that can go on the wall for a few weeks and then it's someplace else. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe and Dave.
Okay. And there, can we get the logo in the background here? That would be nice too, the brand new logo. Oh, we have the official photographer coming now too.
Maybe you might want to move back.
Bag, okay.
Make it pretty.
And then can we get like a group photo too with everybody?
Yes, we're going to do that. We would want to do it with the
Yeah.
logo. You want to open that one too?
Sure.
Yeah, might as well.
Nice. Super. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a gift card for Home Depot to get them started on this honey-do list.
I've got plenty of uses for that.
Okay, and there are also 2 cards in here for you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
We sent those around, so you can open those later or whatever. So if everybody would come up, let's get a picture here. Do you want us behind the table?
Yeah, I'm going to move.
Okay.
Yeah, the microphones are all linked. Microphones are all linked together.
Stand, right? We can get more people in.
You're sure. That doesn't. Oh, yeah.
Here, Joyce.
Sure. We'll get more people in.
Well, actually, what needs to. Yeah, okay, so.
Okay, we have to make Jody sit.
I'm going to squeeze you in, Lisa, for a second. Oh, that's fine, that way.
Good point.
I can try it. Joe and you? I was just going to say, we don't need Joe.
Every
There we
update?
go. There we go.
Snapping between flickers.
That's the fun part.
I don't want to. Nice.
Thank you.
I like to do that. That's my problem.
Kind words. They'll come back and put it back together.
We are not yet. One last thing would be, if anybody wants to say any particular words on behalf or about Joe, at this point, this would be the time to do that.
Pretty good quote to have on something of your own.
I think that one's okay. That one's okay. As long as they're up, you're good. There. Yep. Beep, beep.
So again, just to repeat, if anybody wants to say anything about Joe at this point, special words, that'd
Has
be
to be
great.
good stuff.
Relatively short, because we know there is a cake waiting for us. All right. If not, all those in favor of adjourning? Aye. All right, we are adjourned. Perfect.
Super. I'll leave that out so people can see it, actually.
Yeah. I thought the quote on there was,
It's great. I'm a big fan of Fred.
I think a lot of us of a certain generation are.
I got to go to, they have a, I guess you could call it a memorial in Pittsburgh.
Oh, really?
It's right across from Heinz Field, where
Yeah.
the Steelers play. And it constantly runs